how did I get here? How did I end up in a place where I am so afraid to move? I am so afraid to make decisions. I am obsessing over what the right decision is, and I'm so afraid about making the wrong decision and feeling like my life will just come to doom because of it. Sometimes God already told you what to do, and you're sitting there talking about, God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Are you being consistent at the thing that He told you to do? What does your progress look like with the last instruction He gave you? Because sometimes God called you to do content creation, or God called you to learn this skill. God called you to go to school, and you're asking Him, what's next? Have you graduated? Have you hit certain milestones? Are you doing the best that you can at the last thing He told you to do? Sometimes there's no instruction because you're supposed to be improving and doing the thing that He last asked you to do. Remember when you were a teenager? Mid-teens, late teens. Do you remember some of the decisions you made? Do you remember some of the people that you chose to date, perhaps? Do you remember these decisions? And do you remember how smart you thought you were while you made those decisions? Do you remember how sure you thought you were when you made those decisions? It's when we magnify ourselves and minimize God, that's when we get stressed out. If you find yourself lost in the middle of the forest somewhere and you don't know which way to go, and you're just surrounded by trees and you could go absolutely everywhere, and you find yourself afraid and you don't know what to do, the best thing you can do is to start walking. Just start walking. The direction doesn't matter. Just start walking. And if while you're walking you realize you went down the wrong path, then just turn around. Just course correct. Figure out what to do in that moment, but you keep going. You don't stop. The worst thing you can do in that situation is to stand still because you're afraid that you go down the wrong path. And unfortunately, that is what I did for the past year and a half, and it literally kept me stuck. And I am just now, pulling myself out of that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you are somebody who you feel like you are stuck, you don't know which way to go, like your life is a blank canvas right now, and you could make any decision, or you could go here or you could go there, and you have no idea what to do, this episode is for you. If you find yourself stuck with analysis paralysis, like you have a decision to make, or you have plenty of decisions to make, which is, life, and you find yourself feeling stuck because you're afraid of making the wrong decision, or you're obsessing over what the right decision is, so you make no decision at all, this episode is for you. Recently, I found myself reflecting on the past year and a half and like my life prior, my mid and early 20s, and all of the decisions that I've made thus far. And I was thinking about how, one point in time I said I was going to do this thing with my life, and I was so set. I was so sure that this would be it, right? I planned my life a million times, right? I had plans for myself by 25, then I had plans for myself by 26 and 27, and I just turned 28, and I was reflecting on it, and I'm like, I have lived like 5 different lives in my 20s because I went after everything that I said I wanted to so far. And the issue I was having was I found myself in a place where I reflected on my decisions, and I realized that some of the plans that I've had, the things that I thought I would be doing, that's not how things ended up working out. And it put me in a place where I started to lose trust in myself and lose trust in my ability to make decisions, because I felt like if I made these decisions and I was so sure and things didn't work out the way I wanted to, I was afraid now of making the wrong decision. And I found myself in a place where I was talking to God, because I was growing in my relationship with God a lot over the past 8 months or so. And I was talking to God, and I was telling God, you know what? I am not going to move until you tell me to move, because I keep going in all of these different directions, and then I keep finding myself back at square one. So I stood still, and I stood still. And I stood still, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And I'm asking God, okay, what do you want me to do with my life? What should I work on now? What should be the plan? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm even fasting for clarity during this time. Multiple times I'm seeking God, and He is not responding, or at least not in the way that I wanted Him to. I'm asking God for clarity on my life and what to do with this specific situation. He's like, did you know you had pride? Did you know we have to work on this aspect of your life? Let's work on your character over here. And I'm like, God, okay, cool, great. I'm growing, character development. I love that. Love you. Great. But what about this question that I have? What about this area of my life that I'm seeking clarity on? Are we going to work on that? Can we address the elephant in the room? Right? Silence. And I stood still. I still stood still. I'm like, okay, I will just wait on you then. And I did nothing, right? I did nothing in the areas of my life that I was seeking him on, and I didn't get a clear answer yet. I did nothing because I got to a place where I did not feel like I could trust my decisions. I felt like, what is really driving me to make these decisions, because all of the things that God revealed about my character, all of the character flaws, all of the ways that he showed me that I made decisions because I was in survival mode, and I made decisions because of ambition, blind ambition, and all of these things. Like when he started revealing that to me, I'm like, okay, let me stand still and wait on you. And it put me in a place where I literally felt like paralyzed, like with analysis paralysis. Like I didn't know what to do. I was so afraid of making the wrong decision. I'm like, God, I don't want to make another decision and have to waste years of my life learning different lessons. Like, can you just proactively lead me, And the analogy that I gave you in the beginning about that forest is something that I heard while I was watching an episode of The Diary of a CEO. It was an interview with Jocko. I believe it was about discipline and time management and that type of stuff. And when he said that, it was like something clicked in my mind, like something just like a switch flipped. And I was like, I need to start moving. And then I finally got up and I started moving, and I started thinking of all of these different ideas and all of these things that I could do. And some of these things did not work out, but literally just getting up and having some mobility, having something to work on again, having something to look forward to, I felt like that literally just awakened a level of zeal that I had lost when I stood still waiting for the right path to be revealed to me. I'm going to tell you the 6 things that I have learned in this process that has really helped me get back up on my feet again. But first, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Sensi, and on this podcast we talk about taking accountability for your life to become the best version of yourself. And the best version of yourself is the version that God created you to be. So walking in alignment with God's plans for your life. So the very first thing, which I already alluded to, I already started talking about, is if you find yourself in that place where you feel lost, where you don't know what to do, you have all of these decisions ahead of you, the first thing I have learned is to start walking. Because in my experience, once I got up, once I started making a plan, once I looked at the options in front of me and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try these things for this much time, and like I put a plan in place and I gave myself deadlines and benchmarks to measure my progress, it literally gave me a zeal. I got up, I had something to look forward to, something to work on. And I'm not saying rest is bad or anything like that, but I mean, like, as a person, as an individual, we were sent here for a purpose. We have things that we are called to do, and sitting still, sitting idle will literally make your mind wander, and it will make you feel crazy. It will drive you crazy. Okay, an idle mind is a devil's playground. I learned that the hard way. So once I got up, once I gave myself these benchmarks and a plan, it's like, okay, cool, I got to work. And I just like threw myself into certain things, and some of these things did not work out. Some of these things did not work out, but I literally mapped out a list of things that I could do. And when some of these things did not work out, it's like, okay, I could cross that off my list and move on to the next one. And what I realized in that situation itself is speed is your friend. Speed is your friend. Now, not always. Sometimes it's better to go in the right direction than to go in any direction fast. But what I mean specifically is in that situation, the things that did not work out, I found out within like 48 hours that it wasn't the right path to go on. Having something fail or having something not work out, finding out that the decision that you made was not the right decision in as little as 48 hours is much better than finding out in like 4 years. When you keep things in your mind and you prolong it and you say, oh, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, maybe I could do. Sweetheart, you need to act so you can start getting feedback. And the feedback is either going to give you ways to improve, things that you couldn't anticipate when you were just planning in your head and being a perfectionist, or it's going to give you feedback that tells you, actually, I don't want to do this thing, or actually, this is not the right thing to do, or actually, now it's not the right time to do this thing. And you find out in 24 hours or 48 hours or 1 week versus having it stuck in your mind and saying, well, maybe I can do this. And you think maybe I can do this for a whole year. You see what I mean? And then as soon as you start, you find out within 2 days that it's not the right thing. That's what I mean when I say speed is your friend. But you have to get up, you have to start walking. Consider the options before you for whatever your situation is. Make a plan and take action. Yes, you have to seek the Lord. Yes, you have to get his guidance. But sometimes the thing that I realize that is so important in this journey is that sometimes God already told you what to do and you're sitting there talking about, God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Are you being consistent at the thing that he told you to do? What does your progress look like with the last instruction he gave you? Sometimes when God tells us to do a thing, the reason why he hasn't released a new word is because you're supposed to continue doing that thing consistently over a period of time. You're supposed to be diligent doing that thing. You don't do it once and then say, okay, God, what's next? Sweetheart, no, you're supposed to continue doing that thing. So that was the case in my situation. I already had a word from God. I already knew what I was supposed to do, but I was doing it sparingly. I was like taking my time. I wasn't being that consistent at it. And I was asking him for instructions on the next step. And he's like, sweetheart, you haven't even gotten good at the thing that I asked you to do because you haven't put in that many reps. You are not ready to advance yet. Focus on the last instruction I gave you. So sometimes the reason he's quiet is because you are supposed to keep working at the last thing that he told you to do. Because sometimes God called you to do content creation, or God called you to learn this skill. God called you to go to school and you're asking him, what's next? Have you graduated? Have you hit certain milestones? Are you doing the best that you can at the last thing he told you to do? Sometimes there's no instruction because you're supposed to be improving and doing the thing that he last asked you to do. And he doesn't need to guide your every single step in the thing that he asked you to do. Like, for example, when he told me to start a podcast, eventually he told me to start making YouTube videos. But when God asked me to start a podcast, he did not have to then tell me, okay, now get lights so the quality of your video can be better. He did not have to tell me get a better mic, because my first mic was a $20 mic on Amazon, right? He did not have to tell me, okay, now figure out how to improve your communication and the flow of your episodes. He did not have to explicitly tell me these things. When he said start a podcast, it is my job. I have the authority now to make decisions under the last instruction that he gave me so I can be the best at it. You see what I mean? But the mistake I made was he gave me an instruction to do something and I sat there still waiting for these baby steps like, should I get a better camera? Should I get a better mic? Like, you see, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, you have the authority to make certain decisions under the instruction that God gives you so you can do the best at that thing that he asks you to do. But you don't get bogged down in the minor details and be like, okay, God, what do I do next? 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 No, right? That's the mistake I made because I just found myself in a place where I felt like I didn't know whether I could trust myself and the true nature of my heart because of how much God was revealing to me as I got closer to him, right? I hope that makes sense. I hope that analogy makes sense. But the first thing is you start walking, okay? With the last word he gave you, you start walking. You get up and you figure out how to be better. How can you innovate? How can you improve? What are small steps that you can improve? How can you improve 1% each time? If he called you to create content, okay, you make content this week and then next week figure out how to get 1% better. Figure out how to edit better. Figure out how to grow your accounts. You don't stand still scared and afraid saying, God, what do I do? Because the second thing which pairs well with this is that God is not necessarily a go here, go there type of person in the way that I just described, where it's like, okay, start a podcast, now get a new mic, now get a new camera. No, he'll just tell you, start a podcast. If God asks you to do something, it's because he trusts you to do that thing. You have a certain level of authority where you can do that thing. Because when he asks you, he will bless you. He will give you the gift to do it so that it's natural, it flows. You don't have to think too much about it, right? Like some of us are just naturally gifted to do certain things. But God is not a micromanager, right? He will give you an instruction, but he's not going to micromanage you. The big takeaway you need to get, the big lesson that I learned is that it's not about being micromanaged at every little step under the instruction that God gives you. It's about understanding that you have the authority to make certain decisions about that instruction. And as long as you keep his commands, as long as you stay close to him, he will be with you, right? He will guide you. So if you start walking in obedience under the last instruction that he gave you, if you start walking in good faith, he is going to redirect you if you are going in the wrong path. He is going to guide you. He is going to make a way if you're going in the right direction. But he is not a God who is going to micromanage your every move, because we have free will. He's not going to impede on that. That is what I had to learn. I got to a place where when I, started doubting myself and doubting my decisions, and I was looking for him to micromanage me so I wouldn't make a mistake, I learned that he is not a God who micromanages, but as long as I understand that he will be with me, I can confidently make those decisions and start walking and trust that if I'm going in the wrong direction, he will redirect me, he will guide me, he will correct me, he will discipline me. I just have to remember that he is with me in that thing, right? If I keep his commands, if I stay close to him, he will be with me. The power is in knowing that God is with you, right? It's not in trusting yourself. It's not in trusting your own cleverness. It's not in trusting the works of your hand. It's not in trusting that, well, I just made a great decision to do this thing and that's why it worked out. No, if God gave you an instruction and you're moving in alignment with that, the power comes in knowing that he is with you. That is where you draw your confidence. You don't sit still and freeze up and be like, I don't know what to do. You need to trust God, and you also need to trust yourself and the authority that he gave you to operate in that thing. The third thing is you need to reflect and take inventory of how did you get here. So we're talking metaphorically about you being in that forest and you being lost and you don't know which way to go. Ask yourself, how did I get here, right? Because you want to make sure that you can avoid this situation again if possible, right? So you have to ask yourself, how did I get here? How did I end up in a place where I am so afraid to move? I am so afraid to make decisions. I am obsessing over what the right decision is, and I'm so afraid about making the wrong decision and feeling like my life will just come to doom because of it, right? You have to take inventory. You have to reflect and ask yourself, how did I get here? For me personally, I told you it was because I was thinking about all of the decisions that I've made, thinking about how I have made all of these plans and all of these different things. At one point, I thought I wanted to do this with my life, and then I wanted to do that with my life. I've done many things. And each time I was sold that this is what I was going to be, right? Initially, it was like graphic design at first. Then I started building websites, then blogging, then like all of these things, right? Even wanted to be an accountant at some point. I was thinking and reflecting, and unfortunately, instead of looking at how I was brave enough to take a chance and take risks and pursue these things so I can comfortably say that I know that these paths are not for me, instead of focusing on the lesson that I learned in these situations and being proud of myself for having the confidence to pursue the things that I wanted, I went down a path of feeling like, well, if I got it wrong so many times, how can I trust that I am on the right path right now? Let me just stand still and freeze and surrender and say, God, okay, you tell me what the next step is, because I don't want to make another wrong decision. And that's no way to live your life. We make decisions every day, right? Most of them are small, but there will be many opportunities, as long as you have breath in your lungs, where you have to make decisions about your life. And operating from a place of fear or obsessing over what the right decision is not helpful, okay? It is not going to help you. That's why I think God had to let me learn that lesson. And I'm grateful that he was with me during that experience. So I want you to think about what that reason is for you. Why, if you are there, why did you get to a point where you feel so indecisive, or where you're so afraid to make decisions, or you're afraid to make the wrong decision? You're obsessing over the right decision. How did you get to that point? What made you so fearful? Or is it the possible consequences of some of the decisions that you feel like, well, I don't want to make the wrong decision because I don't want to face this consequence? And by the way, if you need an extra boost to help you reflect on your life and reflect on how you got to this point and reflect on what fears may be causing you to feel paralyzed and afraid of making the wrong decision, then the best thing to help you with that is the self-reflection journal, because the same way I talk on the podcast is the same way I created the journal prompts in that journal to help you get to the core of what is truly holding you back, okay? It's no fluff. I came up with the prompts myself. These are the type of questions that I asked myself over the years years that have helped me become a very reflective and introspective person, and really helped with my mindset. So if you need help with reflecting, if you feel like you need my voice in journal prompts to check you every single day and do one prompt every single day, then I would highly recommend getting the self-reflection journal. One of the things that I'm learning too, again, with the last point, is that you have to surrender certain things to God. I feel like when we get overwhelmed sometimes, especially me, when I get overwhelmed sometimes, it's because I am looking at my own strength. I am looking at the obstacles ahead. I am looking at what's in front of me, and I'm overwhelmed because I'm thinking of, okay, how can I handle this? How can I fix this? How can I change this situation? And the fear and doubt and panic sets in because I cannot do anything about these things in my own strength, right? I have to yield that to God. It's when we magnify ourselves and minimize God, that's when we get stressed out. If you focus on the fact that if it's His will, it's His bill. If you focus on the fact that if God gave you a clear instruction and you know that it is from Him, He will work things out for you. He will make a way. There will be less panic. It's really about what you focus on. This is really like warfare, to be honest. This is really like spiritual warfare. A lot of it is in your mind. A lot of it is the enemy just trying to distract you, to get you to focus on the downside of everything, get you to focus on the bad in everything instead of focusing on how big God is, right? Because I just told you, like, I could have looked at all of these experiences I've had and be so proud of myself that I was so brave and so bold when I used to be so shy and timid and reserved. I could have been proud of myself, like, wow, you have lived a full life, Sensei. I'm so proud of you. But instead I'm like, you thought this would be it and this is not it. Like, what are you going to do now, right? The enemy made me choose the negative perspective instead of focusing on God. And that's when everything started to spiral, right? So you have to take inventory and reflect and realize, how did you get to this point, so that you can mentally change your perspective, because half of the battle, or most of the battle actually, is really in your mind and in your perspective. So when you reflect, you are now fixing the problem at the root. The fourth thing is, do not lose trust in yourself when things don't work out, or if things don't work out for whatever decision that you make, whether it's this current situation that you're thinking of, or in future, with big things and with small things. If you make a decision to do something and it doesn't work out, do not lose trust in yourself. What I want you to think about is this. Remember when you were a teenager, mid-teens, late teens? Do you remember some of the decisions you made? Do you remember some of the people that you chose to date, perhaps? Do you remember these decisions? And do you remember how smart you thought you were while you made those decisions? Do you remember how sure you thought you were when you made those decisions? Now stay with me. I know this isn't helping. But what I want you to realize is the reasons why you made those decisions, which now you look back on in disgust, is because you did the best you could with the knowledge that you had at that time, okay? When we are young, like that young, because now, I'm on the other side of 25, I can look back on my early 20s and I can realize how there's a certain level of arrogance that comes with your youth, like your early 20s, teens. There's a certain level of arrogance that we have, and it's not necessarily our fault. We are just going based off what we know, which is not very much, okay? But we think we know everything, right? There's a certain level of arrogance you have before you start paying bills, before you have responsibilities, before you get into the real world, the working world, so to speak, right? There's a certain level of arrogance and pride that you have where you feel like you just have life figured out, or I will have my life figured out by the time I'm 25, right? We just make these plans blindly without a taste of reality, and we think everything is just going to work out exactly how we plan it. We believe everything that we are doing right now is just going to work out. It's just going to line up. Planning your whole life by 25 and then stopping there, like that's the peak of your life. Like, this is what I'm going to do by 25. This is what I'm going to have by 25. How many of us, our lives actually look like what we thought it would look like by 25? Or how many of us actually hit those goals that we wanted to have by 25 by 25? Probably not many of us, right? Because as we went through life and, life started lifing, etc., we realized that we did not have enough information when we made some of these plans, right? So what I want you to realize is that it's not a situation where you stop trusting yourself. It's where you realize that sometimes you do the best you can with the knowledge and the information and the wisdom that you had at that point, which might not have been very much. So what you do is you gain more wisdom. You make it a point to gain wisdom, right? You made the best decision that you thought you could based on the level of knowledge and information and wisdom that you had at that point in time. So the best thing to do is to gain wisdom, to seek God, ask God for wisdom, and supplement that with educational materials like books, like podcasts, like mentors, etc., right? So you can make better decisions going forward, because what you make is based on the information that you have now. So if you don't like the type of decisions that you've been making, you need to expand your knowledge, you need to expand your network, but you do not lose trust in yourself, because you need to trust yourself. You need your ability to make decisions, because literally that's a part of life. You cannot avoid it, okay? Now the fifth thing, I think we're on number 5. I already mentioned it, but I want to elaborate on it. And that's redirect or shift gears quickly when things do not work out. Okay, sometimes when life be life, and sometimes okay, yes, we need to take a seat, we need to take a step back, we need to reflect. What did we learn? What can we do better going forward, right? Cool. You don't need a year to do that though, right? You might just need maybe a few hours, a few minutes, 1 hour. You don't need that much time, right? When I say redirect quickly, I mean you can reflect on that situation and the learning lessons, but you need to get up and you need to do something else. I've had my podcast for 4 years now. And when I started off, there were several things that I was doing that was not working, okay? And in my immaturity back then, when I was 24, I kept doing those things, right? I was in my head about a lot of things. I had all of these different fears and stuff that was just making me play it small and not do my best, not be my best. And then I started growing out of that, and I started taking a risk, doing other things and learning different things and implementing different strategies that I was learning. And some of them didn't work, right? But when it didn't work, I didn't completely stop podcasting. I kept going and I kept learning, and I'm still going and still learning, right? Because God has not told me to stop making the podcast. So you will see these episodes every week, okay? Which slight deviation. I want to call out something really quick. Here and there, I've had my bouts of inconsistency where I may not release an episode a certain week or 2 weeks at the time, and I might repost an old episode or something like that. One thing I've realized that is not working for me as a podcaster is literally holding myself to releasing episodes every single week. Do y'all realize, if you're new here, you may not know, but I have held myself to releasing new episodes every single week for the past 4 years. For 4 years, my cadence has been new episode every single week. And sometimes I took breaks where I would batch a bunch of episodes. Like today, I'm batching 4 episodes in the same outfit. Mind your business. You'll see, they will all look the same, but the content will be different. I will batch a bunch of episodes and schedule it out so that I can take the week off and I don't have to record or anything because I already have the content. But sometimes I would do it every week. It depends on when stuff comes to me because I'm a solo podcaster. I don't have guests to shift the conversation. It comes from me. It comes from what God wants me to talk about, right? One thing I realized that is not working for me, now that I've been doing this for 4 years, is holding myself to a new episode every single week. I realized that a lot of successful podcasters, they operate in seasons, right? So they will do season 1 and they'll do it for a few months. Then they will take a few months off and then come back with season 2. They will have that moment of rest and recovery and recharge and getting new ideas and, learning and taking a break. I now realize 4 years in, this is what I need to do. Okay? So I'm saying it in advance. Eventually, I haven't decided when I will stop this so-called season yet, but I'm realizing that Holding myself to a new episode every single week nonstop for the past 4 years has been too much. So now I will be operating in seasons, right? But if I did not have that mindset of reiterate quickly when things aren't working out, I would have probably said, you know what, I'm burnt out. Let me just stop. I'm not doing the podcast anymore. So that's what I mean. Whatever you are doing, if you are doing something and you are burnt out, or what you are doing is not working, your page is not growing, you're not learning a new skill, your business is not growing, your skills aren't getting any better at that hobby or whatever it is you want to do, you need to reiterate quickly. Stop doing more of the things that aren't working, okay? Because that is going to make you burn out even more faster and then feel like the thing isn't working and it's not worth your time and you shouldn't do it, when in reality, it's just your strategy, okay? So that's an example in my life. I encourage you to reflect on how you can apply that in your situation. And the sixth and final thing is understand that even if it doesn't work out, it will be a building block or an opportunity to cross a what if off of your list. What I mean by that, and I've said this before, is every time you have an idea to do something, you have an opportunity to do that thing, or you cannot do it, and then you will live with regret later on and then be like, what if I took a chance on myself? What if I did that thing? What if I started the podcast? What if I had posted the content? What if I had created the page? What if I had went back to school when I said I would? I would have graduated by now, right? You don't want to live with that what if. It is the worst thing ever. You do not want to have what ifs, right? You do not want to have regrets. You do not want to look back on your life and feel like you had a life half lived, right? So even when these things don't work out, you get to cross out a what if off of your list, and it will be a building block, right? It's literally all about your perspective. If you look at it the negative way, you'll feel like a failure. Oh no, I just shouldn't do these things. I'm not going to trust myself. But if you shift your perspective and you say, you know what? I've scratched that itch. I have satisfied that craving. I have learned a lot and it's not for me. I'm going to move on to the next thing. That is going to help you move on to the next thing with confidence, because you are building up an identity where you take risks, where you take a chance on yourself, where if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But you learn the lesson and you move on. And what I mean when I say it will be a building block is I realized how intentional God is with our lives, with my life specifically. God really does order our steps. A lot of the things that I wanted to do that I tried in the past that did not work out, I realized in hindsight, in reflection, that these things were seasonal. They were not meant to be the things that I spend the rest of my life doing. They were seasonal. They served a season of my life, and they were a building block for the next season. For example, my interest in content and all design and all of these things started off with graphic designing. When I was like 12 or 13 years old, long story short, I used to create graphics on Paint Shop Pro because Photoshop was paid and my mother wasn't buying Photoshop for me. So I downloaded Paint Shop Pro, the trial, and then I used GIMP because it was free. And I used to do graphic design. I used to design pictures of my friends on Facebook when I was like 12, 13 years old, up until 14, I think. I used to love graphic design and I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. Then I realized that takes way too much effort and I don't actually like it. Then I moved into designing websites. And I literally used to build websites just so I can design them because I like the creative aspect of it. I used to just build websites and add in themes and design it and then play with the code and all of these things. And I used to just build multiple of them because I enjoyed doing it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to be a website designer. Then that was short-lived and I said I was going to be a blogger. Instead of just designing blank websites, I now started writing content on them, right? I started writing long-form content and it used to be so lame. It was like a diary. One time I wrote about Justin Bieber. I wrote about Chris Brown. I wrote about, hey, so today was rough. Like I was literally 15 writing about music videos and popular GIFs at the time, like just foolishness, okay? And I saved all of it because it's so funny to me. But I started with blogging and then I said, you know what? I want to blog about self-improvement. I really like self-improvement. I love the idea of improving your life. And then I created a blog on self-improvement. I started writing that stuff, but then it turned into a college blog and then the college blog started doing very well. And I learned about SEO. I learned graphic design. design. I started using Canva. I learned how to do all of these things, build website, buy domains, all these things. And then God called me away from that. And then I started the podcast. But when I started the podcast, all of these things that I had done in the past were building blocks for the podcast. By the time I started a podcast, I knew how to design graphics on Canva. I knew how to build a website. I knew how to buy a domain. I knew how to get a domain email. I knew how to set up websites. I knew how to do all of these things that made the process of starting my podcast relatively easier than somebody who had no knowledge of anything on the internet or anything like that. And they just said, I want to start a podcast. They would have no idea what to do. I probably knew how to do 8 out of 10 of the things that were required for me to start a podcast because I had those experiences that were all building blocks. But you only see in hindsight how these things were building blocks. You never see in the moment, and you usually don't have the foresight either. Only God knows. So instead of looking at all these past things as failures, look at them as building blocks. Even my degree in accounting, when I was in school, I didn't end up working in accounting. I went into finance. But when I was in school, I thought I wanted to be an accountant. And yes, there's a difference. And I got my degree in accounting. But when I was in accounting, I had classes on tax. I had business classes. So literally, I started my LLC for the blog while I was in college, right? And I learned how to set it up as an S corp so I can get favorable treatment when it comes to taxes. I learned how to write off taxes. I learned how my camera, my mic, my lights, all these equipment were tax deductions, right? Because of my degree in accounting. A lot of people who do content creation, they don't know anything about the business aspect, about the taxes, about any of that. But because of my degree in accounting, I have kept spreadsheets, P&L statements, and I know how to do my taxes. I know how to deduct my expenses. I have all of that experience because of those building blocks. So my degree wasn't wasted. It helps me with my podcast. It helps me with all of these things, right? But if I look at it like I failed, I thought I wanted to do this with my life and it didn't work out, I am missing how I can leverage all of the things that I have learned from each of those experiences. And if you don't look at it that way, you are likely doing the same thing. God orders your steps, right? There could have been a million things that I could have tried, but you're telling me coincidentally all of them led to a point that is beneficial for where I am today? If you really take the chance and you think about it, you will see how your steps were ordered. None of these things were mistakes. So don't look at them as failures. Look at it from the perspective of what can I leverage from all of those experiences and opportunities that I've had and things that I've tried and different career paths that you may have had in your life. Always look for the lesson. Always pull out the transferable skills and use that in whatever situation you have now. It is not a failure. Your steps are numbered. I'm telling you, it just takes the right perspective to realize how everything is connected. And then when you look at it that way, you won't feel like a failure. So do not let the enemy trick you into feeling like you're a failure. Oh, it shouldn't happen by now. It's building blocks. I'm telling you, it's just your perspective. And if you know you are somebody in that position where you are struggling with indecision and these 6 points have helped you, then I encourage you to not stop here, but watch my other episode on how it is time for you to stop playing small and it is time for you to go harder. So I hope these tips helped you. If it did, make sure you like and follow the podcast and also subscribe to my newsletter on Substack because I will be sharing more raw and unfiltered parts of my journey and tips to help you on there. But that is all I have to say today, and I will talk to you next Sunday.